don't know, I have this theory that like, I think we have a biological reaction to stories in the same way that we have to music. You know, like I notice when I'm hanging out with my friends that I've known for decades, we will retell the same stories that we were all a part of. And every single time our eyes light up and we get goosebumps and we laugh and we get excited and the stories morph and change and we get to like relive them in the same way when a song comes on that was a song you absolutely loved or you were going through something, you get to feel all those like emotions again, like you tap towards them. And like even when somebody tells a story in a group, it's different than when someone has like a hot take or a premise. It's like, hey, this thing happened. Everybody shuts up. And all of a sudden we're like, around the campfire for some reason.
Yeah.
So I'm curious your take on what that is about us and story. Is it like our earliest version of digesting information?
Well, I think I'm writing a new book called We Who Wrestle with God, and that's really what it's about. It looks to me like, I think it's incontrovertible in some sense that we see the world through a story. And so if you're out with your friends and you're telling a shared story, then you're literally building the shared set of assumptions that constitutes the friendships. And so think about the leftist take on the world. So the leftist take is something like the fundamental story is one of power, and the relationships between people are structured as a consequence of power. That's true for marriages, it's true for history, it's true for the Western canon, it's true for economic interactions. It's all about power. Well, that's a story. And it's not a very good story, by the way, and it's also not a story that unites or reflects reality in an accurate manner, because social relationships are only predicated on power when they become corrupt. So, well, if you have to force someone to be your friend, that's just not working very well. If you have to force your wife to pay attention to you, then the bloody situation is degenerated. If you have to force your children to listen all the time, then you're not mutually acting out a very good story. And so the question is, what's the story that's the antithesis of power? And I think the antithesis of power is play. If you're ensconced in a good story, then what you're doing is playing. This is one of the reasons I really like watching comedians, because they're playing all the time. And I think that play, the spirit of play, is actually the antithesis of the spirit of power.
Let me tell you something that will prove your theory. And I have to give credit to my podcast co-host and just creative partner in so many things, but Mark Gagnon. But I took him to this thing called Burning Man this past year. And his reflection on Burning Man was, he goes, it's just adult play. I go, what do you mean? He goes, think about it. The whole thing is adult play. Now, to tap into the power thing, Burning Man is what happens when you remove power. There's no currency, you cannot buy anything, and there's no restriction in terms of your ability to enter once you're there. Every party is welcome to everybody. Every place is welcome to everybody. You can't even buy things, you just give. So you remove traditional power structure and hierarchy. What is left for humans? Play. Dress how you want to dress, dance how you want to dance, party how you want to party, be silly, prank one another. But play is the absence of power. Wow, that's kind of cool.
Well, look at what happened. Yeah. I used to go work out with a couple of my friends in Boston, and we used to try to make each other laugh when we were bench pressing. Because as soon as you laugh, you lose all your muscular control. And so it's obvious that play and humor are antithetical to power, because as soon as you laugh, you're powerless. I think I talked to Theo Vaughn about this, the comedian. His mother had a very strange condition. If he made her laugh, she would actually fall asleep. Yeah, she'd lose so much muscular control that she would fall asleep. He said he used to try making her laugh when she was driving. Yeah, which seems like, not the wisest thing to do, but he apparently wasn't the wisest child, at least by his own admission.
Yeah. Well, he was curious. He was playing.
Yeah. So this is a very lovely thing to know, I think, is that, and then the right story to tell is one that enables people to play along.
But that's the beautiful thing. It's like when I hang out with my friends, like when we have those moments together, that is what we're engaging in. We're engaging with this ball busting, we're engaging with this play, and we're engaging with these storytelling that these stories always share something about who one of us is or who we all are. You know, oh, blah, 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 loves big girls. Remember when we were doing this and he had that girl? Man, she wasn't that big, blah, blah, blah. And now it's like, I'm not going to make a parallel to the Bible, but like there's a reason why the Bible didn't just say, just do these things. There's a reason why they put them in story, right? Because it's far more impactful to listen to this story. And I wonder if like through osmosis, the behavior in the stories kind of get locked into our long-term memory, where if you just tell someone a rule, it's short-term and then might be fleeting.
Well, the thing about having the rule embodied in the story is you see how it's acted out. So, and then that's much more convincing to watch how something's acted out, partly because then you also know how to act it out, right? If it's just a rule, you have to translate the rule into action. But if it's a story, then the actions are laid out for you. You know, and they say that every story has a moral, and in some sense, that would be the rule of the story. But it's not necessarily always that easy to extract out the rule, but you can still understand the story.
Yeah. I want to do a deep dive. And like, I think one of the issues with Hollywood right now, to be honest, and like why some of these films just don't make sense, or so many of them don't, is because the creator of the idea is so far removed from the executor of the project.
Yeah.
So like, hey, here's a great idea for a movie, blah, blah, blah. And then someone goes, I'm going to buy that from you. That's great. Thank you so much. And then we're going to go make it. And they're making it with all these people that are also kind of detached from the project. If you look at the writer-directors, their movies hit at a much higher rate.
Yeah.
And it's not only because maybe they're more talented, but it's because they're invested in the project all the way through. It means something if that project fails because their identity is wrapped into it. A random person that gets thrown on a project, a random writer that does punch up that's not even credited.
They also benefit from the success disproportionately. So, you know, you were talking about these censorship proclivities. So one of the things I observed in the corporate world when I was attempting to sell to middle managers was that if they bought something from me and it failed, they would get blamed. That would happen. But if they bought something from me and it was very successful for the company, they wouldn't get credited.
Oh, they wouldn't?
No, because of this. So I'll give you an example. We were selling these tests, psychological tests, and to a group of people who were doing the hiring. And they said, well, they got budgeted on the cost side. So every cent they spend on hiring would be credited to them, right, as an expense. But if they hired much better people and the company did well, that wouldn't be credited to them as a accomplishment, because the value would go to someone else. It wouldn't be directly attributed to them. And so what happened to them was that there was an outside risk to each of them for acting in an entrepreneurial manner, and very little upside if it was successful. And you can imagine in a Hollywood production, for example, that isn't spearheaded by a writer-director, if it's successful, he's going to be wildly successful. Now, he has to shoulder the blame too. But if it's distributed among a bunch of people, then they're going to get blamed if something goes wrong. But if it goes real well, they're not going to get credited.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that's how you have a shitty project. Maybe you get lucky and it ends up working out. But yeah, I think that I like shouldering that blame. I'll take the risk on myself with these projects like that I want to do. Like, I don't mind that. If it fails, it's on me. I can take that. That's motivating. That's exciting. You know, and I also believe in myself and the people that I work with that we can execute these things.